Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Season 3, Episode 12 of the IDP Heat Seekers, brought to you by RotoHeat.com. I am Kraig Rueth, and with me, as always this season, is Austin. Austin, how's Monday going for you?
So far, so good. We've been talking about, fantasy leagues, drafting. It's been a fun week. I've added several more drafts across most of my leagues, and it's been a fun off season so far. And we're going to do some more mock drafting today, it sounds like.
Yeah, we usually do one or two of these. We usually do at least one rookie one, and then sometimes we throw in a veteran one later in the offseason. We'll see how things go. But we're certainly going to be doing a one quarterback league, IDP league, rookie mock draft here tonight, and that's going to be over on Sleeper. I threw it in the chat there over on YouTube. If anyone jump in, we do have a couple spots left. I'll see if they fill. Otherwise, we will be sort of pre-filling those for the teams as we go. That way we don't have some of these awful auto draft picks that you guys might see on the list here when we bring it up. But there are a lot of these going, and I'm going to bring our screen up here. And I apparently navigated off of it. But anyway, when you have these IDP leagues, Austin, usually how deep do you have your rookie drafts? Because we're going to do 7 rounds here.
Yeah, so 6 to 7 is pretty good for IDP rookie leagues, I think. Usually those rosters are going to be deeper. And then, of course, it just depends on how many IDP are you playing with? Is it just 3, a defensive line, a linebacker, and a defensive back? Is it full IDP, like with flex options? It just kind of depends on the roster size. But I think for most of the drafts that I do, 6 to 7 rounds is pretty healthy. I like it.
And where do you sort of generally see the rookies start to go? Excuse me, the IDP rookies start to go for you?
Generally speaking, probably in the second round. I have seen Will Anderson go in the first round, but generally speaking, those will start to kind of go in the second round. It's all dependent on the draft too, right? Like what kind of IDP talent do you have versus what kind of offensive talent do you have? How great do we feel about the landing spots? We've talked about this at length not at length, but we've mentioned it several times throughout this offseason on our shows that the landing spots this year for offense and defense just really have felt horrendous, and it's made it really tough. I feel like a lot of value that we saw on the offensive side of the ball really took a hit, at least in my opinion, for several players. There are a few who made it out well, but there are still a few that you're like, man, this is tough. So a lot of variables to consider.
And we are going to get this going as soon as it lets me actually start the draft. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So the first team is not filled here, and we're going to have to see if it actually does this auto pick. You can turn off the CPU auto pick, and I do have that done. There's a consensus, really, especially in one quarterback leagues, but even in Superflex, from what I've seen, of Bijan going there. So we kind of know he's going to go there. Then you're going to see some more of these offensive players. And assuming this doesn't actually draft them, we'll find out here in 1 minute. We're going to fill these other ones pretty quickly as we go here. But have you seen Bijan go anywhere else? I know we're talking offense here, but besides the 101 in your drafts?
No, I think he's the consensus 101. I was going to make a joke about Will Levis being the 101 in one of my leagues, but that's just not happening. Yeah, he's the 101 in every league. We'll see what the computer does here, if they make the right pick or not. Hopefully they will. It'll be very telling if it does not, what we're in for.
This is going to be my first mock this offseason with offense and defense thrown in the same one. My home league, my main league, is 14 teams, and it's 32-man rosters, and we start 2 defensive line, 2 linebackers, 2 defensive backs, and a flex on IDP side. And we have a 8-round draft of 14 teams. But the caveat with that is, and I do have to set a player here. All right, good to know. So we're going to take Bijan there. You can draft veterans too. So it's not just rookies. So, it's not a crazy amount if someone drops someone you wanted to pick up. So it adds a little bit of different flavor to it. But all right. And if you have questions about these offensive players in the chat, feel free to add them in here too. We're going to try to get through these offensive players as quickly as we can to get into the defensive players, because that's why you're here watching us. You're not here for the offensive talk. You can find that on the Fantasy Buffet, the Dynasty Heat Seekers. Good evening, Mr. Scampers. Nice to see you in the chat.
We're 1 for 1 on the computer.
Oh boy, I forgot already. Who you can pick here, Austin? Who would you like to go at the next pick here?
One quarterback. Man,
it's usually one of the receivers, Quentin or Addison, from what I've seen.
I really like. I think I have Addison over Quentin Johnson personally. So let's go with Addison.
All right, and then we're gonna do Quentin Johnson right after him.
True.
All right.
Sorry, John, if you're watching this and you feel like we stole your players with those computer picks.
It is interesting that Charbonnet is still up there. Quite a bit higher than these other rookies, just in terms of the ranking still on Sleeper, with the seeming fall that he's had since the NFL draft when he got drafted behind Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who the landing spot I was just like so disappointed with, who I thought I would try to target pretty high. I mean, he's still, the third best running back in the class, arguably. I mean, could make the case, but the landing spot is just atrocious.
And there we have our first quarterback. Goes with Anthony Richardson, which I've seen a lot of him going as the first quarterback in fantasy leagues. I don't know that he was necessarily the right choice in the NFL, and he didn't go there, of course, but definitely for fantasy with that running floor, he could be a great pick for fantasy, and he could be out of the league, in 4 years. So,
right.
But one quarterback, it's not as big of a, especially 10-team league, as a hamper if you bust on that quarterback pick.
Yeah, I am sure. Why not? I'm not going to go with quarterback, not in a one quarterback league. Certainly not going to go with Bryce Young. Go with the wide receiver there.
If you had to go a quarterback next, who do you like out of the, I'll say the next two because I doubt you're taking Will Levis as your second overall quarterback.
Yeah. I don't know. Could probably make a case for both. It's so tough because as a passer, Bryce Young he's pretty polished. He's pretty good. He's accurate. And CJ Stroud is as well. Not taking anything away from CJ Stroud. I don't know how much I make of the size thing. I know that's been a point of discussion with Bryce Young, just being so small. And I mean, I don't know. It's not like he's Kyler Murray out there where he's just so elusive. I don't know. I might be pressed to go with CJ Stroud. So I might personally go with CJ Stroud. Take the chance.
We might have to fill a pick here, so we'll keep an eye on that. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So the thing I think too is, I could be wrong on this, but it feels like there's less pressure on CJ Stroud in year one to, step up and perform. Whereas Bryce Young's in a situation where, if he's underperforming or just not getting the job done, there's somebody who can step in that's a veteran who, they're not a great quarterback, but certainly serviceable and have shown that over the years.
Who do you like here? Do you like a tight end like Mayer or Kincaid, or we got Devin Achane, Tanks Bigsby sort of as the next running backs on the list here?
I've been seeing a lot of Kincaid going ahead of Michael Mayer, and I don't know. I kind of like Mayer myself, but a lot of Dalton Kincaid.
All right. Well, we'll set Dalton Kincaid there because I've seen that quite a bit too for fantasy with the way he's being talked up on that Buffalo team. Brad going Kendre Miller. It's another very nice landing spot there.
Brad really likes Kendre.
Early on in the draft process, I had him as my number 3. running back in the class. And I didn't end up with him there. I think he was still top 5 when all was said and done. But that draft capital certainly helped out his case going to that really nice landing spot as well. And we are going to go.
Yeah, I watched your shorts, Brad. That's how I know you're a Kendre Miller fan. Well done, by the way. You can check those out on the YouTube channel.
So this is sort of that area where, looking at the guys, there's probably 2 more picks, and I guess I'll probably have to take one of them, but certainly 2 more guys that I would see on my board before the IDPs would start to go at the 2-3 coming up here for me. But this is going to be the range. I agree. We're like Jack Campbell, Will Anderson are going to start to go in your IDP drafts.
Yeah.
But I do like Mayer. I also like Josh Downs a lot.
Yep. And then
there we go.
Wow. And I think the third one for me, I would consider Sam Laporta.
Yeah,
but those are the 2 players. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he's a little bit farther, and you got to scroll to find him. But I agree. I like Sam Laporta a lot, and he's getting a whole bunch of buzz too.
Yeah. Yeah, but those are the 2 players that you mentioned that I would probably choose before I took my first IDP player. 3
Downs there.
Nice.
And because we just talked about him, we'll throw Sam Laporta in there. I know we're talking. We didn't clarify if this was dynasty or one or rookies. Excuse me, redraft. Dynasty or redraft. You don't really have rookie drafts and redraft leagues all just thrown into the same pot. So this is for dynasty, and you do see, some people. I have seen Laporta go ahead of Michael Mayer, and I do think some of it's on one hand sort of recency bias in terms of Laporta is one of the hot new things, and Michael Mayer, Devy Circles was talked about for a long time as the tight end in this class. But I also don't like his landing spot as much. He's going to a team with much more concentrated targets on bigger names, like Devontae Adams is huge, of course, but they got Hunter Renfrow, Jacoby Myers, they got Darren Waller's left, and he's presumably stepping into that role, but there's going to be target competition on a team that likes to run. I kind of feel like Sam Laporta has the same thing, though, where they're going to run the ball there in Detroit, and they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. At some point, Jamison Williams is coming back this season, so...
A fun fact, because I did a little bit of homework on the Lions offense. So they finished top 7 in total passing yards, total passing attempts. And I want to say, I don't know if it was like completion or air yards, but regardless, this was a top 7 passing offense in several categories last year. And everyone says Dan Campbell likes to run the football. Well, that's true. But Dan Campbell hasn't been afraid to pass the ball either.
And I think you would know more about this since you dug into it. I mean, they threw a lot to those running backs too, where it wasn't just completely running the ball. I mean, Jamal Williams and Swift, when they were both healthy, they both were catching balls from Goff too, where, he isn't just completely throwing it downfield. So it does make sense. And you're up here, so I won't bug you too much here. But I've had one IDP go here. If you're looking at a 12-team league, that would have been right at the turn. We talked about that's usually about where you see it. This is, of course, a 10-team league. We cut it down to try to fill. But again, second round IDP, and then not, we'll see if an IDP goes here. But there's not a whole lot, and there Jack Campbell goes, which I figured he was going to go this round between you and Brad anyway.
Yeah. I mean, there was another person on the board that I would not mind having there. We'll see where he gets picked. He's a little bit further down, surprisingly, on this list. When you look at the sleeper ADPs, how they have him ranked. Yep, there he is. So Brad takes Rashawn Johnson, and I could make a case that, either he or Jack Campbell in the late second round feels really good to me.
And you can actually find all of our rankings over at rotoheat.com, where you can find even combined rookie PPR and IDP combo rank. Austin, myself, and Brad. Brad is, of course, picking at the 12th spot here with us tonight. And when you go over there, you can sort by Austin's rankings, Brad's rankings, my rankings, the combined. You can find all that good stuff there. And I am trying to see.
So what do we since this is, and I know you're a good multitasker, so I'm still going to pose a question, even though I know you're working on the CPUs. Take your time.
No, go ahead.
Jack Campbell, where are we at with this? I mean, this is an IDP show, obviously. Let's try to hone in on these IDP picks if we can. Not a whole lot that we haven't already said about Will Anderson. And we've talked about Jack Campbell a lot on the show as well, but seen him gone to the Lions, who, felt like they really needed a linebacker in the middle who, could, be a good tackler, be just a bigger player. I mean, Malcolm Rodriguez is a little undersized, but so Jack Campbell, I mean, what do we feel about him? Like, is he going to get a lot of tackles? Should we expect more sacks? That was one of the knocks on Jack Campbell, is his lack of production, with getting to the quarterback. Do you think that we see a change there, or, what kind of production do we see for Jack Campbell in year one?
Well, I think he and Anzalone are going to be the two main linebackers that are on the field for the vast majority of the time. And what I think that's going to mean is maybe not the ceiling you want initially, but Anzalone is going to stick around as the veteran, and he's going to get some production. He wasn't a world beater there to begin with, and I think there's more than enough production where Jack Campbell could end up being, back-end linebacker 2 his first year or something like that. Like linebacker 3 is probably more reasonable, but he could slide up farther there if he really takes to that system, because they do have a very nice defensive line there in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. A young, developing defensive line too.
And I am going to stick to my IDP draft board, and I'm going to take your guy. So,
well done.
Dynasty-wise, and it was tough, and I know it's a huge outlier. Dynasty-wise, I still have him ahead of Campbell. Certainly not for year one and maybe even year 2. But Josie Jewell's contract is up there soon. Singleton's they can get out of pretty easily after 2 years. They said they're going to mainly use Drew Sanders there in the middle. I think that's going to be great for IDP production-wise. And, of course, he can still rush from the middle linebacker spot. They don't have a problem doing that in a 3-4 defense. So I think they're going to get creative and find ways to use him, because he is just such an amazing talent. But he's raw and needs seasoning. So it makes sense to have him go behind 2 guys that have been there and had, over, I think, 120 combined tackles each last year. But it just stinks, as we talked about, I think, 2 weeks ago when we covered that part of the draft.
Yeah.
All right. Back to all players here. I think it's about too late for these quarterbacks to go. Usually you're going to see them start going here. And we're just going to go back to back. So if you wanted to take a quarterback, sorry.
Get rid of him.
We're going to go here. Yep.
There's still time for Will Levis, though. We got 7 rounds.
Oh, he'll go at some point here. Hendon Hooker's probably going to go at some point. So
yeah, fair.
So if you were sitting here, I know you're not up yet, but if you were, we'll wait to see what you do. I'll ask if they don't go before then. I don't want them to snipe you, even though it's a mock draft. But this is, for me, it's certainly an area where I'd start taking another IDP or 2. And there's a few of them on my list that I still have ranked pretty well here. In fact, there's a consensus 4th IDP player through the 3 of us over at RotoHeat.com. It'll be interesting to see if he's the next one to go here.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple that I'm like, oh, I kind of like these guys. One with a good landing spot, one with not a good landing spot. I think you can figure out who I'm talking about there. Hopefully.
All right, well, let's see if my tagging actually works now. Because on the computer, it's not letting me tag people. I can try it from my phone.
John hopped off. He said, nope.
Come on.
We'll put a pick in here in a second if it doesn't hop in here. Is there any pick so far that has really surprised you on our board here tonight in terms of how early or how late they went?
Kendre Miller, I think, went earlier than what I've seen him going. Again, I think this is preference. I know Brad has done those shorts over on RotoHeat's YouTube channel. So I think he went just a little bit higher than what I've seen him go in the drafts that I've been in. Maybe even Tank Bigsby. I've seen him slide quite a ways, but I mean, not a bad pick. And then, but yeah, I mean, most of the stuff I've done is super flex. So I haven't actually done one quarterback league yet, which is interesting. But I mean, it's all relative. So I can kind of figure out what is going to happen based on the scoring.
You got Jaws in here with a question, and you're up on the clock, so I'll let you go ahead and pick. But Jaws' question: Will Anderson mostly a pass rusher in this scheme, or likely to be gobbling up tackles too? Can really be a Chico with those edge designations that get a lot of linebacker run. And Austin talked about this a couple different shows when we would talk about Will Anderson. But I know you certainly feel like he's going to do all of it, just with how smart he is and what he's shown at Alabama, and then having a smart head coach that's defensive there with the Houston Texans now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's an intelligent player. You watch, that's one of the things that I've mentioned before on the show that really stood out to me about Will Anderson is, and then there goes another one of our guys, the guy with the good landing spot, who we'll get to in just a minute. But yeah, I mean, I think this is, I think he'll mostly be a pass rusher. I don't think he'll be playing outside linebacker like a true outside linebacker. But I think he will be able to get tackles too. And I think it's just because of the position that he puts himself in, the physicality that he has, his, speed coupled with his size. Like, I think he's going to be able to do a little bit of everything.
We're starting to see those IDP players off the board here.
Flying off the board.
And I'm
giving us something to talk about.
Another one's. Yeah, so let's see here quick.
Tyree Wilson was the one that went. Tyree Wilson's the one that went that I was like, people don't really love the landing spot because of the Max Crosby, Chandler Jones situation, but I think Tyree is going to be really hard to keep off the field.
Oh boy, I don't want to take an offensive player, but I am here.
I did the same thing.
Because I think Tajee Spears fell too far. But we're going to set some IDP players here going off of our rankings. Trenton Simpson is one of them that's up there. And we'll talk about these guys in a second after I get these picks in. And I'm going to go someone a little bit higher as well. Oh, nope, wrong spot. Sorry, everyone. I'm still trying to figure this out and navigate it as I'm entering picks here. But BJ Ojulari is not as high in a lot of rankings, but I do like him for immediate production and that long-term production there. The other one I was considering entering there was
don't do it.
Miles Murphy. I like as well.
Oh, okay.
Not as much immediate production, I don't think. No, we'll see if the guy's snipey here if you're looking to take him next. But he was one I was considering if it wasn't Ojulari there.
Fair. I don't mind it. I think maybe I missed something here, but I think we're good. We'll see what happens. Yep, there he goes. Nice pick, John. Well done. That would have been
Lucas
my
Van
pick.
Ness. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're kind of seeing here, if you're paying attention, no IDP players in the first round. Makes sense. We talked about that. We had 2 total, and the 2 that you would think, Will Anderson and then Jack Campbell at 2-2 and 2-8 respectively. We got Drew Sanders at 3-3, Tyree Wilson at 3-6, Nolan Smith at 3-10. And then the 4th round here is where they've really been starting to go off here. We've got Jalen Carter, Brian Branch, Trenton Simpson, BJ Ojolari, Lucas Van Ness. Got Mozzie Smith now, which is a really interesting one there by Lucas. And now you're up. That's a lot higher than I've seen Mozzie Smith go. But also, one of the things is it sounds like he's going to have a shot to be plugged in right away there at Dallas on that front line if he does show up well. Super strong guy. He had 30-some bench press reps. And the other thing, too, is he had high, and I'm trying to pull it up now, high tackle numbers, too. So
this is
yeah, he had 37 and 48.
Somebody I could take care of, but this is an IDP show, so we're gonna go with that. And I really like the value there. Yeah,
that's great value.
Yep. If you get that kind of value in your IDP leagues, guys, take it. Take it.
And he's someone that can certainly have immediate starting potential, depending on how those linebackers shake out. And if not even a starter, because we know, okay, the name being called a starter necessarily doesn't mean much in today's NFL. It's that snap share that you get. If he gets what is equivalent to a starter snap share, that's what you're looking for. And Diane Henley, with his ability in coverage, what he's shown at the Senior Bowl against running backs, his ability to match up, speed-wise, stay out there on tight ends, he could certainly have that right away value for the Los Angeles Chargers. So getting him in the late 4th is, I agree, that's fantastic value. And Miles Murphy fell too far here, so I'm putting him in here. And you can kind of see down here on the best players available on our screen, a lot of offensive players still, because if you go to the IDP, the highest rank is a 719 for a player. I'll be honest, I didn't know about until I saw the name pop up on these sleeper drafts, and then we got players down in the thousands. So clearly sleepers IDP, ADP is not where it needs to be. So you're really just going to see the offensive players here on the list, but you'll get an idea of, where we're considering these players on the defensive side with the players that are available in offense. Because there are some names out here, like Zach Evans is one. He's in a really good landing spot I'd be considering here. Chase Brown, with the lack of clarity, what's going on with Joe Mixon, he's a running back that I'd have interest in here. And Sean Tucker's another one. He didn't get drafted, I think, for my own pick. Maybe he already went, because I'm not watching the whole board. Nope, Jaden Reed.
Nice.
Receiver, offensive pick that I really like. I know I went 2 offensive players in a row there, but we got guys we're filling in with defense here anyway.
Yep. They're doing a great job. Couldn't do the show without him.
That's right. And I mean, we could do a very just defensive draft here too. But those are unfortunately harder to fill. It's still a bit of a niche. And you got to make sure you get these other people's opinions, because you hear Austin and I all the time here talking about the players we like and don't like. And you can certainly hear about Brad as well on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and in the Discord and on our rankings at RotoHeat.com. You'll get his stuff too. So it's nice to get other people's opinions and information in here. All right. I'm going to set the next 2. We'll do one defensive and one offensive player. So we got 3 defensive players in the first 5 picks in round 5 as well. Miles Murphy, who we've talked about a bit here, where seemingly going to be a backup for a bit. Brian Brzee, who's going to be a defensive tackle in New Orleans. He'll have an opportunity to start there. And then Tuipulotu, I know a guy we've talked to you all about quite a bit, was a big fan. Austin was a big fan of right away, and then went to that Chargers landing spot.
Mm-hmm. Which will be interesting to see. I don't expect much immediate production, but I am curious. In the thing about him is, it's crazy. Can you guess his age without checking?
For which player is that?
Tuipulotu.
If I had to guess, I'd say 22.
This kid's 20 years old.
Wow.
So if you're worried about him getting you that immediate production in year 1 or year 2, it's okay. It's okay if he doesn't. I still like the talent. And at that age, I mean, I'm sure he's probably going to turn 21 here pretty soon. But I like that. I like the kid a lot.
I mean, having that youth on your side in Dynasty is huge.
Huge.
In fact, still productive at such a young age. That's even a bigger deal. It's great to see.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's a man. I mean, you look at this guy physically. I mean, even at like in college, and then at USC. I mean, that's a big program, and he was big at USC. We'll see, how he stacks up in the NFL, but at that age, I mean, that's impressive for sure.
And he's going to have great players to learn from in terms of pass rush there with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, and the interior defense there that they've had some turnover. They got new players slotted in there, other players he can learn from. He's a bit of a tweener where I don't think he can hold up consistently on the inside at the weight that he's listed at was in the 260s for the most of the time, but he really isn't the same sort of player as a Bosa or a Khalil Mack either. But sometimes being those tweeners, not a bad thing either, because you can fill multiple roles. And you see in today's NFL all the time, you don't have to just stick in one position by any means.
Right.
Rounded out the fifth.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
I was going to say, what picks are you seeing that stand out to you right here? Is there anything that you see that, going, like you asked me earlier, going too late, going too early? Surprise?
If I was doing one thing and one thing only, I think, probably Dorian Williams would have gone higher here. He's a player that it's going to be interesting to see if he does end up with that starting gig next to Matt Milano. There's a lot of people that they're looking at to fill that in. They had Tyrell Dodson, who I think in 2019 was a free agent. Terrell Bernard was a third-round pick last year that got some playing time last year as a rookie. Dorian Williams was taken, I think, either 2 picks before or 2 picks after Terrell Bernard, just, a draft later. So it's like right in that exact same zone. Both of them were drafted. And then they got an old veteran, AJ Klein, that's played a lot throughout his career. He can wear many hats, I'll put it that way, on the defense. So he can certainly slide in there too if they want to go with a veteran and see how these younger players turn out. But Dorian Williams is a super athletic, great in coverage linebacker that really fits today's NFL. He just isn't a Tremaine Edmonds type of linebacker. So it'll be interesting to see how Buffalo fans take to him, because there wasn't a whole lot of excitement, it seemed like, when he was the linebacker they took this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because he came from Tulane. It's a smaller program, but Tulane was a good football team, and he was the leader of that defense, and he was exceptionally good. I like the pick. I mean, I like the player. I think he could be in for a starting role year 1. We'll see, but at least, I mean, he's a great dynasty buy.
All right. Well, I'm filling in some picks here. So
go ahead.
Start of the round here. Actually, we didn't even finish the end of the round here. So after Dorian Williams, we had Derek Hall, edge player for Seattle, Ventrell Miller in Jacksonville. Either one of those picks surprise you at all?
Ventrell Miller kind of does, because we know what they already have at linebacker. I mean, Chad Booma is the third linebacker there, I think. Ventrell Miller, though, he's not. You think he's more of an outside linebacker than like an off-ball linebacker? Do you think he's more of an edge rusher there?
I don't. No. He just doesn't. I mean, from what I've seen, he doesn't really fit the profile. They could certainly try him there, and I don't know that they're going to retain Josh Allen or even make a big effort to, just by the way that his career has gone. But it's just a weird situation with the way that they've drafted lately. With Travon Walker, and they got Muma that you mentioned, and I already forgot Devin Lloyd. They're really focusing on that linebacker / edge core, but it almost feels like they're amassing just in that area, trying to like build on might be a perceived strength to see who ends up being the gold out of the pan they go through. I'm not a huge fan of it. The Miller pick surprised me and confused me a bit in the NFL draft.
I like this kid a lot. And I don't normally draft cornerback, but the
First
way he
cornerback
plays, the way he plays is whatever. This dude is bringing it. Like, he plays with a lot of intensity. He is not afraid to bring contact to the ball carrier. And I think he is the type of cornerback that you could see him have higher tackle numbers, and he's good in coverage. So really like Witherspoon this season.
He's going to get thrown at too, just for the fact that they have Tariq Woolen there, who proved last year he knows what he's doing, and he's going to be an effective cornerback, and they pick on rookies. He's going to get tackles. He's just great at tackling to begin with for a cornerback, so I'd be comfortable drafting him too, for the fact that he's going to get thrown on, and he's going to get to those tackles and what I feel to be safe. I'm not saying he's going to be Sauce Gardner. Don't be getting things twisted where he's going to be a lights out guy, but certainly at least for year one, he's going to be a viable defensive back to start. Maybe not in 10-team leagues, but if you get a little bit deeper, you have bigger starter requirements, certainly.
Yep. Hendon Hooker there going after Jaron Hall is a bit surprising.
Yeah, the Jaron Hall pick, I do like him. Like in a late, this is one quarterback league, I probably wouldn't be drafting Jaron Hall at all. But in a super flex league, I do like him. And I do like that position where perhaps he could be the long-term answer. Showed a lot of athletic ability. He's got a good arm. Kind of fits a newer version of today's NFL quarterback, but he can also just sit back there and throw it in. Kirk Cousins, I don't know what sort of teacher he is in terms of the other quarterbacks there, but he's a fine quarterback in today's NFL to learn from. So,
yeah. And then we have in the 6th round, we got Sidney Brown and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who went to my Kansas City Chiefs. How are you feeling about those two guys?
Well, I love Sidney Brown. I love me some Sidney Brown. And I certainly think he's going to have a chance to compete for a starting spot there in that safety position that really doesn't have a whole lot for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the same thing, though, could be said for Felix. They need more depth. They have Karlaftis, they have Chris Jones, and you're going to know more names than I do. Sort of the two names currently on that defensive front, but they lost. I think Frank Clark is still out there out and about, and I don't think Dunlap's resigned. I mean, no more than that, but I think they needed depth, and I think that's a good position for Felix to go to on a team that's going to be competing.
Right.
And yeah, Dunlap is a free agent, and I'm pretty sure Frank Clark is too.
Yep. Well, I think we need a pick here on the first pick of the 7th round. While you are working on that, I have another question, a follow-up question. Curious what your thoughts are. We saw Brian Branch go in the 4th round, 2nd pick overall, and then Sidney Brown go in the 6th round, almost 2 rounds later. Curious, which one do you have as the number 1 safety overall?
I do in my own ranking still have Brian Branch as a number 1, but I am pretty sure if I pull him up here, let's see, Brian Branch I have at like 9 overall, and he's my first safety. And then Sidney Brown at like 15. And he's my.
So does landing spot do anything to that for you? Or you just like, hey, it's dynasty. And I'm with you. I actually like Brian Branch better in terms of the player. How much does landing spot play into that? Do you think that there's a 2-round discrepancy there?
I think Brian Branch is more complete. I mean, there's at least a clear 1 round, I would say, discrepancy for me, just because Brian Branch can do it all, and he's just been proven to be an all around better player. Sidney Brown, I really like. He's great in coverage. He's not afraid to go up and tackle. He's a smart player. He had problems with missed tackles in college, which that can be fixed. He's a smaller guy compared to a lot of safeties in the NFL. Something that's got to be get fixed, or he's not going to be starter for very long, if at all, in today's NFL. So I certainly think he can do it. I have a lot of faith in him, but that is a concern where I really don't have that one clear big concern on Brian Branch. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, 2 rounds feels like a lot, but I mean, like I said, I mean, we both, I thought, really liked Brian Branch going into this, as the offseason progressed and as we approached the draft. And then I think he'll probably, win a job there in Detroit. I think he is the better player, but Sidney Brown got a really great landing spot in Philadelphia, and I could make a case that he could have been drafted higher. I mean, you look at some of the players who were taken before him. I could make the case that maybe Sidney Brown could have gone somewhere in the 5th.
How about the next safety that I just took from one of the other teams? I know you like him quite a bit, Jair Brown. Do you have him above Sidney Brown?
Oh, that's a good question. That's pretty close. That's closer than what this board shows, I think. Man, it's close. I think it's a matter of preference there. I mean, I think Jair Brown is excellent, cover safety. You saw that with the interception numbers that he got. I mean, he's always around the football. I think he'll be a good complement in the San Francisco secondary to what they currently have. I think he's a good fit, but I think Sidney Brown's a great fit too. Where in Philadelphia, I think he could be an immediate impact player. Jair Brown in year 1, I don't know for sure. I don't know 100% that he's going to be on the field as much as I would like. But I definitely think year 2 value, he could be an interesting pick.
And as we're winding down here, some of these guys might go as I'm talking about, but some names just in our overall rankings that we have not had taken yet here. So Keon White, he's our consensus 19 overall at RotoHeat.com as far as our recent update. Jordan Battle at 21. Byron Young, the defensive end from Tennessee that went to the Rams. He go to the Rams? Or did he go to... Yeah, he went to the Rams. He's from Tennessee College. He didn't go to Tennessee. Noah Sewell, 27. Jartavius Martin, safety. And then Marte Mapu, the safety linebacker hybrid, who I really like. I don't think he would probably go in a draft about this size anyway. They do like him as a sleeper guy, maybe on a taxi squad in a league this size. And that's going to do it. Our last pick here. Brad didn't go with an IDP player. I'll shake my fist at you off the air, Brad. But Keon White did go there. You took Jordan Battle, and then Joey Porter at our second, I think our only the two, him and Witherspoon, cornerbacks that went in this draft. So anyone, and it doesn't have to be anyone I named off of, but anyone that didn't go in this draft that you were kind of surprised, offense or defense preferably?
Yeah. Good question. Oh, we didn't get Sewell, and I think that was a name. And he didn't get drafted, did he? No.
Nope, he didn't.
Yeah,
I
so
just
that's
mentioned him
surprising.
as someone on our list.
Oh, yeah. So kind of surprised he didn't get picked there in that draft. Outside of that, did we get let's see, we got Foskey, we didn't get Cansey. No Kalijah
Yep,
Cansey.
I took him. He's in there.
Oh, there he is. Yep. Okay, good.
Yeah, I made sure I took him.
Okay. Yeah. Well deserved. I think the only one that's standing out to me right now, I guess, is Noah Sewell. I mean, but am I pressed about it? Not really. It's kind of a nasty situation for him. We talked about this with several players. I would say he's one of those players. It's like, that's really a disappointing landing spot.
Yeah, that's our overall theme for IDP rookies here, unfortunately. Just a lot of sad landing spots. Initially, things can change. Things change very often, very quickly, in a year or two for dynasty players. Redraft, not a lot of these guys are going to be useful redraft unless something crazy happens this year. So it will be worth keeping an eye on. But, looking at as far as how our draft went for guys that have a really good shot at year one value, if you're looking outside of the fourth round here, I'd say you're really reaching. And some of those guys won't even have value, but like Henley, you took at the end of the fourth. Someone I mentioned before, certainly I could see having year one value here in redraft leagues. Not telling you to go out and draft him, but if it's August and you see he's going to be starting next to Kendricks and they've really been talking him up, he might be worth a late round pick or someone to keep an eye on. Tyree Wilson, you mentioned, probably only if someone gets hurt there as far as Chandler Jones or Max Crosby year one. Nolan Smith.
I think he'll rotate. I think he'll rotate in. I think he's going to be way too hard to keep off the field, but I don't think it's going to be quite the snap percent that we want to see for somebody with that kind of draft capital.
That's going to end up being the problem is he's behind two guys that are probably going to be out there way more than he is. And they're veterans that, know the system better. So Wilson's going to play, but is it going to be worth, for a redraft league?
Yeah.
Probably.
Where was he drafted in the draft? He was taken what pick overall?
Tyree Wilson went to the Raiders. I don't recall. It was in the top 10.
Yeah, so top 10. Generally, when you have a player taken in the top 10, I think there's just an expectation that they're going to be an immediate, like, on the field all the time kind of player, 3-down player. And
he was 7.
Disappointing. So. Yeah, it's just disappointing with that kind of draft capital that he's like 3rd on the depth chart potentially. We'll see if that changes. There's still time, and then as we know with this league, injuries can happen. But it's just kind of disappointing.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, unfortunately. But there will be guys on here that we didn't even draft that end up having value at some point in your IDP season. So if you have questions about those guys, feel free to let us know. You can find us over here at rotoheat.com and then the RotoHeat YouTube, Facebook, Discord. You can find us on Twitter. We got our handles down here at RotoHeat Kraig, at RotoHeat Austin. Any sort of final thoughts or other questions you wanted to pose from on how our one quarterback IDP league draft went here, Austin?
A couple players I want to cover here in the 7th round real quick. Let's just go ahead and hit like 3 players. By the way, I really like the Joey Porter pick in the 7th round. I like him. Owen Papo feels like he could be in a decent situation there in Arizona with maybe a surprise path to playing time. I'd like to hear your thoughts on him. And then Overshown in Dallas, curious if he's going to be just buried on the depth chart or if maybe there's a chance that he could emerge in Dallas in some capacity, either, year 2, year 3. And then the third guy is Jordan Battle, who in the 7th round looks like he could be competing for a starting spot. Although I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of his testing, which wasn't really great. But his production was good. Curious how that balances out and what your thoughts are if he's actually going to be competing for a starting role there in Cincinnati.
Last question first. Battle went way later than he probably should have. That was a great pick by you. I do think he's going to have a shot to start there, whether it's as one of the sort of main 2 safeties as we think about it traditionally, or if you want to count 3 with Dax Hill in there. Dax Hill can also play a lot of slot corner. He did some of that last year. He did it at Michigan. I think they're going to find a way to get those 3 guys. That would be Battle, Hill, and then Nick. I always get his name wrong. Is it Nick Scott or Nick Cross? I always do that. Second guessing. I think it's Nick Scott.
Nick Scott. Yeah, Nick Scott. You're right. Nick Cross is in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, yeah. So Nick Scott, and I don't know why I can never remember those two different last names, but he came over from the Rams as a safety, and he signed a decent-sized deal. It looks like he's going to start there. So, again, a lot of teams are doing this 3 safety thing or getting all 3 of them on the field at a different spot. Quite often, I think Battle will have a great shot there. Joey Porter, I certainly like. It'll be interesting just to see how well he does at the NFL level. They talked about conversation with his dad on draft day, or it was day 2 of the draft, about use this, internalize this and make you a better player. Great lineage, going to a great organization. I think he's going to be in a good spot and certainly could get year 1 production. Overshown, I'm not excited about for year 1 production, mainly off the fact, like you mentioned, Dallas doesn't play a lot of, if you want to call Micah Parsons an edge, 2 linebackers, but Parsons is still a linebacker. They just use him there. They got Parsons and Van Der Esch are going to have the majority of the snaps this year, probably even next year, unless something weird happens. So Overshown might get on the field as that 3rd linebacker. He does have competition with Jabril Cox, Damone Clark. We'll have to see. But whoever has that sort of 3rd linebacker spot doesn't have a lot of excitement for me. Owen Pappoe, I certainly think he could end up having significance this year. He's a guy that could fit in there sort of at that inside linebacker type of spot they've talked about, and they are, at least, currently going to be trying Zaven Collins at the edge. See how that works out. Maybe he sticks there. They've not committed themselves to the Isaiah Simmons experiment past this year. I don't think they're just going to play him just to play him. They don't think he's the future and don't think that they're going to re-sign him, whereas Owen Pappoe, and what's probably going to be a rebuilding year for the Cardinals, see what you got in the young guys. See if he can be something for a year or 2. And they sort of have a similar player that they signed from the Eagles that head coach Jonathan Gannon knows, and Kaiser White. Similar type of players, similar in how they could be used. And we've seen Kaiser White have viability in IDP leagues. So I do like that spot there.
Yeah. Quick update on Zaven Collins. Apparently he was out at the Live Golf this weekend here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and having himself a good time. Last thing I want to mention here too, you asked for a name that didn't get drafted. I'm going to throw one out there. I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. Do you know who I'm going to say?
Boy, don't. Let me just look at these rankings here quick and see if someone that we didn't mention.
It's not obvious. It should be obvious.
Ivan Pace.
No, that's a good guess, though. If you're looking for safety help, I'm just going to throw this out here for you guys. And you're super, super deep in your leagues, maybe in the 7th round, you could consider taking him, Jason Taylor, who, by the way, is the 2nd. Yep. And I was incorrect in making an association with the Jason Taylor from the Miami Dolphins. So I want to correct myself if anybody saw that on our last show and said, what the heck is he talking about? No relation there. But Jason Taylor could be a starting safety for the Rams, could be a surprise pick year 1. If you don't draft him and none of your league mates draft him, maybe a really good taxi stash for you that you can get for free on waivers once the draft ends. But somebody you should keep an eye on.
Well, that is going to do it for us tonight, folks. Thanks for everybody who tuned in, and especially everyone who tuned in to draft and help us get this 7-round IDP offense defense draft done. And Austin, I want to thank you as always for being here with me, and any parting words for people at the end of the show here.
You guys know what to do. Follow us on, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We thank you guys for checking in every week. Jaws, it's really nice to see you here in the chat. Mr. Scampers as well. We always enjoy seeing you guys in the chat, watching our shows and engaging with us. It's so much fun seeing you here week to week. And for those of you who tuned in for the first time, welcome. And hopefully you guys will tune back in next week. We've got more content coming for you guys as this off season progresses. With that said, though, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.
And next week we will be back. So that's the 22nd. We'll be doing veterans this time, NFL veterans on the IDP side that are sort of trending down after we've had time to digest what happened in the NFL draft. And then 2 weeks from now on Memorial Day, we'll be taking that. So we'll still be around for questions and everything if you need that from us, but be spending some time with our families and Again, the chat regulars, Mr. Scampers, Jaws. Thanks as always for tuning in. But we will see you guys in 1 week.